I'm not so sure I'm pronouncing this correctly, but is Tsinghua University still something that you're associated with?
Yes, I go to China a couple of times a year to Tsinghua, which is one of the two big universities in Beijing. For me, there are two huge questions that historians in the future will have to grapple with when they write about our time. One of them is the problem of Islamic extremism and the violence associated with it, this fundamental problem of how does Islam adapt or not to modernity, and the other is the rise of China. And while Ayan has devoted so much of her life to understanding the Islam problem, I see myself as able to contribute more to the question of China's rise. So I think one can only really understand this by going there. I wish I were a better educated man. I do not speak the language, but I have spent a lot of the last 10 years trying to understand modern China better. And since I'm by training an economic historian, and it is fundamentally an economic question, it preoccupies me a good deal.
Are you involved with the Schwarzman College?
Yes.
And the reason I bring it up, because I looked up the advisory committee of the Schwarzman College, and it just seemed to me to be one of the great networks that you could possibly put together. And I'm going to read down the list.
Yes.
Sarkozy, Tony Blair, Brian Mulroney, Kevin Rudd from Australia, Henry Kissinger, Colin Powell, Hank Paulson, Jim Wolfenson, Bob Rubin, Condi Rice, Rick Levin, who used to be the president of Yale, Richard Haas, the Council on Foreign Relations, Yo-Yo Ma, and others. If I were an outsider looking in, I'd say that's the Illuminati. It's Council on Foreign Relations. It's and what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it means that Steve Schwarzman, who's the brains and the money behind the Schwarzman College, has the Rolodex of Rolodexes, and Steve was able to bring this group together, as well as lesser fry like me to do the teaching. There are 2 points that I think one can make. The first is that clearly there is an enormously important network, and you've just listed some of the key nodes in that network. You could find similar names, similar combinations of names, if you went to the World Economic Forum or the Council on Foreign Relations, or you just hung out in New York and the Four Seasons. This is a real elite network, and it is it's very important to recognize that it exists and is not dreamt up by conspiracy theorists. It's not an invention. These mostly men know one another. Second point, this is an elite that seems in this case to be trying its best to do something that I think is good, namely to build a new kind of network that connects China to the West. The Schwarzman Scholarship Program was dreamt up by Steve as a kind of version of the Rhodes Scholarships, which used to bring people to Oxford, still bring people to study in Oxford. And the Steve Schwarzman vision was, well, we need to do something similar so that there is more understanding between the future leaders of China and the future leaders of Western countries. I think that's a very good idea. I think the program is a terrific innovation, and I see when I go there terrific students from all around the world, not just Americans, it's from all around the world, getting to understand China better and studying alongside Chinese students at what is the equivalent of MIT or Harvard in China.